Hello, yogis. This is a yin class that is great for when you're feeling exhausted. I created it needing a kind of head to toe yin class because I was just exhausted from some of the vigorous asanas that I had been doing. So let's begin. Just come to a comfortable seated position and connect with your breath, closing the eyes. Placing your hands either on your knees or in your lap. As you're ready, you can move your hands to your abdomen. So your right hand on your belly button and your left hand on your chest, just to feel the light rise and fall of the belly and the chest. We're going to do a count of 4 breaths in and 4 breaths out, pausing on the top and on the bottom. So inhale for 4, pause, and slowly exhale for 4 and pause. Inhale for 4, pause, retaining at the top, and slowly exhale to pause. As you're ready, you can bring your hands back down to your knees. We're going to come into a gentle neck stretch. So bring your right ear gently to your right shoulder. Inhale and lift your right arm up and plant it gently on your head, just to give yourself a little bit of an extra stretch. If it's too much for you, you don't have to use your hand to guide you. And breathe. We'll be here for 1 minute. Gently release your right arm down to your thigh and slowly lift the head back up to neutral position. As you're ready, bring the left ear to the left shoulder. Inhale your arm up and use it to gently guide a little bit more deeper stretch in that left side, putting a little bit gentle pressure on the left side of the head. Nice slow breaths, breathing into any sensation that you feel, filling it with air, and on the exhale, melting that area, bringing more space. As you're ready, you can bring your right arm back down to your thigh and slowly bring your head back up to neutral position. Make your way into all fours position. We're going to go into a puppy pose variation. So stack your knees under your hips, walk your hands forward, and slowly melt your heart to the mat. You can use a block here to rest your forehead if you can't quite make it down. We'll be here for 5 minutes. So just close your eyes and breathe into wherever you feel sticky and stuck. In this particular pose for this class, I could feel it in my shoulders, the top of my shoulders, where my arm connects. Just breathe into the tension that you feel, filling it with breath. And on the exhale, imagine the tension dissolving like snow melting under the warm sun and hydrating that area of the body. Towards the end of this time, you may get to a point where you feel like you are so far at your edge that you want to come out of the pose. And this is a time to really connect with our breath and dig into their deeper part of ourselves to make it through to the end. Slowly walk yourself up back into a child's pose. If it's comfortable for you, I would suggest to bring your arms around your legs to give those shoulders a little bit of a rest. versus having your hands forward in front of you in a traditional, or hands under the forehead in a traditional child's pose. And just relax and breathe. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Come to sitting on your heels, and we're going to come into frog pose to get into the hips a little bit. So rise up onto your knees and bring your knees about the width of the outside edges of your mat. Keeping your legs as much of a 90-degree angle as you can. For this pose, modification would be to bring your heels of the feet closer together under the seat and coming more forward on the mat towards the front of the mat in a less of a 90-degree angle. And if you're more flexible in this groin area, you can keep the 90 degrees and you can bring your feet out so that way your heels are under and your ankles are under your knees. You could always roll up some blankets or a block and put it under your seat so that way you're more comfortable in this pose. This is a very challenging pose for most people. You can stay up on your elbows, or you can walk your hands out in front of you straight and lay your chest on the floor, whichever is comfortable for you. Just take a few minutes to get into the pose wherever you are, but make sure it's a place where you can be for quite some time without tensing any other parts of your body. It's okay if your pelvis does not touch the floor in this pose. My chin, in this pose, I place my chin. You can place your forehead if it's comfortable for you, or your chin. It was more comfortable for me to place my chin on the floor and breathe. Okay. To come out of this pose, I suggest walking your hands closer to your body and kind of sliding forward until you can lay flat onto the floor on your belly. This is a very slow movement. There's no rushing coming out of this pose. If it's more comfortable for you to walk your hands all the way back and come up to a seat, that is okay too. Once you've gotten yourself out of the pose, you can gently come onto your back and bring your knees into the chest for a little bit of a counter pose, and hug your knees. You can rock back and forth on the sacrum a little bit if you like. Give your lower back a little bit of a massage. From here, make your way back up to a seated position on your heels. Separate your heels to either side of your seat. We're going to come into straddle stretch. We're going to come into saddle stretch. Seat between your heels, place your hands behind you, and if this is all that is available to you, you can stay here and breathe. This is a quad stretch. Or you can come down to your elbows. If it's comfortable for you, you can tilt the head back and relax, or you can keep the spine straight, the cervical neck straight, whichever is more comfortable for you in this pose. If it's available, you can also lay all the way flat on the ground. It's important in this pose to make sure we're not arching in the low back, especially if you lay down. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to put my hands on either side of my hip bones and make sure that my tailbone is lengthening towards my knees as best I can. Sometimes I have to move my seat out of the way a little bit, move the flesh, get a nice comfortable position. As we come out of those pose, gently lift yourself back up very slowly, using your hands to walk yourself up. And if it's comfortable for you, just come into a wide-legged child's pose. Release that low back, find space in that sacrum area. From here, walk your hands back up to a seated position, and we're going to come into double seated pigeon, or in Yin, it's known as square pose, where you bend your knees and stack your left ankle over your right knee, hanging the foot off of the knee a little bit so that way your ankle isn't bending. I had to place a blanket under my left leg for support because I'm very tight in my hips. So you can fold up a blanket or a towel or place a block under there for support. And you can inhale to find length, and you can fold over the front legs. Or if it's not available for you to fold over, you can just sit tall and breathe into the space of your outer hip, especially your outer left hip. Remember to soften here. Try not to tense anything else in your body. And breathe into those deep tissues. If you folded forward in this pose, begin to gently walk your hands back so you can sit up straight. Remove any props you may have used and place your hands behind you and windshield wiper out your legs, placing your soles of your feet on the floor and just swishing your legs left and right. Slow and steady. There's no rush here. And let's make our way into the other side. Bending the left leg on the bottom this time and your right leg over top, with your ankle hanging over your knee so that way we don't torque our right ankle. Keeping the feet flexed. You may notice that one side is more open than the other right off the bat, and you may or may not need the prop on the second side, and that's okay. Listen to your body where it is in the moment and without judgment as best you can. Breathe into the outer area of that hip or wherever you feel it. You might not feel it in the outer area of your hip. You may feel it somewhere else. Just remember to breathe into that tension that you feel, that sticky spot. And on the exhale, use the breath to melt away. As we come out of the pose, again, if you are folded forward over your legs, walk your hands slowly back up to upright seated position. Place your hands behind you, lean back, uncross your feet, and windshield wiper the legs out slowly. We're now going to make our way into supported fish pose. So you will need your blocks for this pose. You're going to want to place your one block lengthwise between your shoulder blades, right along where the bottom of the block is along like your broad line or just below it. And the second block is going to be placed at the top of the mat for support of your head. And once you're in the pose, you can feel where it is comfortable to have that block on your back. You can keep your knees bent with your feet on the floor in this pose, or you can lengthen your legs out on the mat, placing your arms on either side of you, hands up or down, whatever is comfortable for you. This is a heart opening pose. It's a mild back bend. So remember to lengthen that tailbone. And we're bending from our upper back. Basically, we're bending from where the lower part of that block is in between your shoulder blades and keeping length in our lumbar spine. You may feel a stretch across the front of the chest, across the collarbone area. Wherever you feel it, just bring breath into that area, create space and melt. As you're ready, slowly using your elbows as to prop yourself up to a seated position, we're gonna come into a mild counter stretch, butterfly pose. So place the soles of the feet together, and you can bring them as close to your groin as you'd like, or bring them out further depending on where you are, and just kind of melt forward into folding over. I have my forearms placed down onto the mat because that is what's comfortable for me. However, if that's not available to you, you can just place your hands on the mat. But we're kind of just folding and melting into this. It's more of a low back stretch versus a hip stretch, just to counter out that fish pose a little bit. And we're not here for very long. As you're ready, slowly walk your hands back into your body. Move the blocks from our supported fish to the side. We won't be needing them anymore. And make your way down to laying on your back. We're going to come into a nice little spinal twist here. So place your soles of your feet on the floor and use them to lift your hips and move them to the right about an inch, so that way you can twist over to the left, crossing your right leg over your left. In this pose, your knee placement will determine where you will feel this spinal twist. So if you bring your knee down towards the lower part of your mat, you will feel it more in your lumbar spine. If you bring your knee up closer to your chest, you will feel it more in your thoracic spine. If you keep your knee in line with your hip, it will be more of a neutral spinal position. So just play around with that as you settle into this pose and see what your body is needing today. Again, we are not bringing any kind of tension into this pose. We are just relaxing into this final yin posture. As you're ready, lift the knee up, bring it into the chest, bring your left leg into the chest, hug your knees for a moment. Set the right foot and left foot back down. Move the hips over towards the left about an inch. Bring that left leg over the right and twist. Again, playing with where you have bring your knee to what feels good for your body. And what might feel good for your body on this side might be different on the other side. So just play around with that. Listen to your body. Slowly bring that right leg back up. Bring both knees in, hug them into the chest. Reset the pelvis. And stretch out into Shavasana. If you want, you can just reach your fingers and your toes separate as far as you can. Put a nice little stretch into there. And cactus the arms down around your head into a goalpost position. This is what felt good to me today. Or you can relax your arms down to your sides, palms facing up. Taking a minute here to breathe in Shavasana, just allowing all of what we did to settle. You might feel tingling in some of the areas of the body that we worked. As you're ready, start wiggling your fingers, maybe stretching your arms up overhead, and slowly making your way up to a seated position. We take a few minutes to just reconnect with our breath. And bring your hands to heart center, up to the third eye, if that. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I would love to know how this class went for you. If there are any requests or any constructive criticism on how I presented this class for you, as it is my first Yin class on YouTube, so let me know your thoughts on it. Namaste.